Yo, welcome back to the vlog. I'm here with the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. What a beautiful bike. I'm kind of doing this out of order. Normally I do the vlogs and the trip and then talk about the bike like I did with the Interceptor, but this time I'm doing it the other way around. I thought if I do it this way around, you can hear about the bike and my thoughts on the bike, then go and watch the short vlogs. They're going to be 10 to 15 minutes long, a very short mini series, and make your own mind up about what I've said, you know? So I went to Wales on this. I spent 24 hours in Wales. I went from London to Abergavenny, up the Elan Valley, through the Brecon Beacons, Elan Valley, Aberystwyth, then back down through the centre of Wales via Devil's Staircase. Phenomenal ride, and then back home. So I've done a fair few hours on this bike now, 15, 16 hours, and a fair few hundred miles. It is not my bike. I went to pick the Interceptor up a few days ago, and after 2 weeks of being in the garage, there's still issues with it. They're not mechanical issues to do with the actual engine of the bike. They are aftermarket parts that the previous owner put on, but we're going to replace them with stock, and then it should be fine to go. Finally, after about 3 weeks. Anyway, so instead I had this bike. I've done, as I said, good few hours on it now, a good few hundred miles, and I've ridden fast roads, highways, I've ridden back lanes, I've ridden single track roads, B roads, and the occasional kind of gravel green laning section. Well, I did one in Wales actually, and to be totally honest, you'll see it in the vlog. Rode past it, and it was about a 20-meter track cutting a corner, so the corner went round and this track went straight up instead. It was a steep track. You can't see it in the video, but it was very steep with very loose gravel, water running down it. But I went around this corner, looked back, and I just thought, oh, I've got to give something a go whilst I'm here just to see how this bike goes. Being very much aware this is not my bike and I cannot damage it in any way, so I was very cautious. So I went back down this road, got to the bottom of this track, looked up, and I thought, okay, this could be a bit too much actually for today. But I gave it a go anyway. Got about halfway up, realised that I should have walked it first because there's a massive mound of rock in front of me on this left side which I was going up. Okay, yeah, it looked a bit gnarly. Kind of stopped and then couldn't get back up. I couldn't move off from there. There wasn't, you know, just got stuck on this loose gravel, so I had to come back down the hill backwards. So I kind of chickened out of that, but I just became very aware that this is not my bike. I didn't want to attack it too hard, so I took it very easy, and it just, you know, it's not a reflection on this bike whatsoever. It's just the way I was riding it. It wasn't ideal, and I was just too scared of dropping it or damaging it to push it too hard. But I do intend to take it on some really light green lanes just to see how it feels, but it's been a beautiful bike. Before I get into the bike, I just thought I'd keep it real. Since getting back from the trip, I've been really up and down. These small bouts of depression and then being good and then being down, and this vlog's really kept me going. And also riding bikes has really kept me going, as it does for most of us who do ride. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for following along, commenting. It's really kind of given me something to work towards, and I'm just really enjoying it, so thank you. I'm also between work as an actor right now, and today I had a phone call from my agent telling me that I landed a job, which I'm super stoked about, and I cannot wait. I'm just super excited about this job, so there's that as well. So I'm on this bit of a hype today, and I wanted to just go and talk about this bike. So let me just preface this with, I am not a bike reviewer. I'm not aware of all the technical specifications of this bike, so I'm not going to talk about them all. I will try not to share any misinformation, but if I do, then just correct me in the comments, but I'm going to try my very best. But the main thing I'm going to do is talk about my feelings toward this bike, obviously, as I always do, after having ridden it for the past few days through different terrain and different places and had a great time. Also, I do this all the time. I'm really guilty of doing this. I will go onto YouTube like I have recently and looked for rally bikes and kind of adventure bikes like the Himalayan, like the CF Moto, and various other bikes, and they get compared most of the time. You know, the top spec newer bikes get compared. And what I've noticed in Wales was most of these reviews, they push them to the absolute extreme, which is great for a test. But I watch them and I'm like, well, I want the best one, of course. I want the CF Moto right now because it is the best bike you can possibly get for any job you want to do. Of course, that's the kind of in thing right now, even though you can't get your hands on it until May next year. But then I realized that most of us normal people that live in London or wherever you live aren't going to be going and pushing these bikes to their absolute extreme. You might go and do a tour or do a trip and end up doing some green laning or some of the tech now and then occasionally, or, you know, going on some gravel tracks like I did in Europe. And then most of the time, other than that, you're riding it around the road. So you want a bike that's ideal for the road and a bike that's ideal for doing the odd bit of off-roading, more so for me recently, I've been off-roading a lot, but that is just because, I mean, back here we've got a KTM 125, which I can't wait to take out this week, but that's just because that's what I grew up doing, motocross. And I found that I do love doing the off-roading, but if I go out and buy a Honda CRF 300 and put that outside my house in London, that thing will walk. So something like this is much better suited and also just better for riding around the city. It's more comfortable and you can do all of it. Whereas these extreme tests, which I always fall into this trap, like I said, of saying I want the best one, that's the only one I want. We're not going to be doing that most of the time. So you don't need the one that comes out on top, I think is what I'm trying to say there. And most of us just want a bike that we can have a bit of fun on and occasionally do the odd bit of off-roading on. And if you want to go and do extreme off-roading all the time, then obviously go and get yourself a bike that's going to do that. Or if you want to go and do the TET around Europe, get a bike like a rally bike that's ideal for that. But for most of us that want to do it all and just have fun as well and ride around with friends on the odd weekend and get coffee somewhere, yeah, I wouldn't always go by those reviews, which is what I've done recently. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I've done it myself. So just a heads up on that. Okay, let's get into talking about the Himalayan 450. Right, seeing as I'm not going to give the technical specifications of this bike and go over it inch to inch, it's going to be a very, very brief kind of review. But first of all, I love it. It's definitely got its weak points, but I've really had a good time on this bike. Let me tell you the positives of it. First of all, the fuel efficiency of this thing is insane. I don't even know, I've not looked into it, what this does, how many miles it does to the gallon. But I went from London to the coast of Wales, Aberystwyth, and then back to the Cotswolds, maybe 450 miles or so, I think, on 2 tanks of fuel. It cost me £24. That's insane. That blew my mind. So that's the first thing. That was incredible. Really cheap trip, actually. Secondly, it's quite low to the ground, but apparently you can raise the seat. So I'm 6'1", just to let you know. When I stand it up, as you can see, it's relatively low to the ground for an adventure bike. But apparently, I haven't tried doing this myself yet, and I'm not sure what setting it's currently on, but you can just raise this seat up. So there's that as well, which is really handy to have. The exhaust pipe, stock, sounds amazing. It's not intrusive. When you get it to higher end revs, it sounds really nice. It thumps. The suspension, the shock and the forks, I've not done any mega off-roading on this bike yet. I'm not going to either, it's not mine, but I'll take it on some light green lanes like I said. But over potholes or just on general roads, going relatively fast when you hit bumps or speed bumps or whatever that may be, it just absorbs them. I've never been on a bike that's this comfy on the road, which I find it blew my mind actually. I rode this thing for 7 or 8 hours, didn't get uncomfortable once. I could have just kept on riding. With the Interceptor, I have to get off that thing every 2 to 3 hours. It's just, it gets uncomfortable. The lights, the headlights are brilliant. I rode this thing through torrential downpours, flooding the lot yesterday. It was just insane rain. And the LED headlight on the front is brilliant. The screen as well, by the way. I've never really had a screen on a bike. All my bikes have been very naked. But having this screen has made a massive difference. It just kind of breaks that wind and it gives me a much smoother ride, especially at higher speeds. The clock on the front is very smart. As you can see in my vlogs from Wales, the frame rate of the clock is kind of different to the frame rate of my camera at the moment. I don't know what the frame rate of the clock is, so I didn't change it, but it's a beautiful clock. Very basic, very simple. The clock, which can give you kind of rough mileage that you've got left in the tank, gives you your trips. Obviously it's all digital. You've got a little control here that you can change that with. A big question loads of people do have is, how is this thing on motorways and highways doing the national speed limit? It is a single cylinder, so it's not like an extremely powerful bike. Obviously I think it's 40 brake horsepower as well, but it does 70, not a problem. And it holds it there as well, which I guess is all you really need to know for riding around the UK. It can probably do, I think it can exceed 90 miles an hour top end, but you can definitely hold it at 70 comfortably. I wouldn't want to do too much more than that, just holding it consistently, but yeah, it does the speed limit, not a problem. What else do I want to say about this bike? It's got optional ABS on and off, and it's just a single button. You press this button here, you can turn it on and off. Super simple. It's got different modes. It's got eco mode and performance mode as well for riding on road, I believe. sleeve, comes ready to go pretty much. You've got the sump plates here, you got one on the exhaust and one on the engine, the tank bars. You could stick some engine bars on it. The brakes are really responsive. I might change the tires if I was to get one myself. I might change the tires. Why is that? I might change them because I think I would just want something more off-road worthy. I mean, these are very intermediate tires. They're kind of right in between, I guess. I'm not 100% sure, which I haven't looked into the tires, but yeah, I probably would get some more chunky tires. Anything else that I want to mention about this bike? It's just I don't really have much more to say. I really enjoyed it. As I said, it's fine on motorways. The only place I would say it lacks, and this comes from a place of not having ridden adventure bikes much. I've mainly ridden motocross, and when you're used to riding 450 MX bikes, coming down to something like this, you really notice the power difference, especially off-road. When I was doing that gravel track, I just thought, God, I could do with a bit more power here, especially going up a steep gradient. This just felt a little bit weak, I'll be honest. It felt a bit, just didn't really have enough of like a low end pop that I wanted to kind of get myself out of this situation. But although saying that, I approached it very cautiously, very slowly, and that was part of the problem as well. So it's not all the bike's fault. Like I said, you can't really review it on that because I was too nervous about dropping it or scraping it or doing any damage to this bike. But I would like more lower end power for sure. But for a 450, I think it weighs about 180 kilos empty, about 190 something with a full tank. My dad got on it about 5 minutes ago and he said, fuck, that's heavy. I don't think it feels that heavy. I mean, especially when you're riding it. I mean, I got stuck on this gravel track, as I said. It was so easy to maneuver off. I mean, I literally had the back wheel on one side of the verge. There's a center verge, a grass verge in the middle. Okay, we're a bit stuck now. The front wheel on the other side of the verge, it wasn't a problem just to rock it off and just rip that front wheel back around. It was no issue, and then roll it backwards down this hill. So I mean, I think the weight isn't really a problem, and being lower down with the seat, obviously for shorter people, it's much more easy to handle and control than a higher kind of bike that you can't really touch the floor on, you know. But the main thing about this bike is it's very basic. It's got one more thing to add, actually. It's got the USB-C port here built in with the bike, which means you can always charge your phone or whatever you need to do, and I think that's a really nice little addition. I know it's not much and you can put one on yourself, but it's just nice to have that with the bike stock. The main thing I would say about this bike is it's really simple. It's a super simple bike that comes ready to go. I don't know exactly how it would handle on more extreme off-roading, but for what I think most of us want to do, it's the perfect go-between, and I think I've really enjoyed riding this bike on the road. So I think this could be a really nice bike if you're mainly riding on roads and want the occasional bit of off-roading, like the occasional bit of green laning or gravel tracks or whatever you're going to do touring. This is the ideal bike. It'd be great for in London. It's great to filter on as well. Super agile, super easy to throw around. If it was mine, I would definitely go and take it on some more gnarly off-road tracks, but I just feel like I'm just a bit too worried about damaging it, to be honest. Being a lone bike, I'm not being lent it from Royal Enfield, I'm being lent it from a dealership, you know. It's not just a bike that I can go and thrash to bits. But I will, like I said, take it on some easier green lanes this week and see how it handles on those. Maybe take it through a few small fords, although it's very wet, so we'll see how those are. My overall thoughts on this bike is it's a really great, fun bike, and I would definitely consider buying one. It just depends on the insurance, to be honest. I think I can't even get insured on the CF Moto, so to have one of these, I wouldn't complain. I think it's a really fun bike to have, and I would not, you know, bat an eyelid to buying one of these things. That's my basic review. It's not very detailed, I know, but it's what I've got for you guys right now, and I'd really recommend it. Oh, by the way, one more thing. It's got 6 gears, which is really nice, and I believe it has a slip clutch, which is really useful to have. I'm just thinking, is there anything else that I want to say about this bike whilst I have it? Is there anything else that I want to say? No. That's it. Really enjoyed it. Brief, short, like my time with this bike so far, but I think this is definitely a contender for a bike for next year, if I can afford one, because they are obviously new bikes as well and they're quite expensive, brand new, but I think a used one would be ideal. If I get one, then we'll have a really fun time next year seeing what we can do with it. Until next time.